Do we have the other commissioners, or who do we have?
They're all here.
Excellent, perfect.
Announcement 1 out of 4.
Oh, it's already running? Okay. All right, just watch for your cue.
All right.
Hi, and thanks for tuning in to Town Hall on WHCP 101.5 FM. I'm Marco Garcia, and I'm very excited to be joined by Mayor Andrew Bradshaw, Ward 1 Commissioner Brian Roche, and Ward 5 Commissioner Chad Malkus. It will be moderated by myself and Dave Wooten.
I'm Dave Wooten, and this program will be restored on Sunday at 1 p.m. on 101.5 FM. You can send your questions and comments via the WHCP YouTube channel and Facebook page. This program will be restored, re-aired on Sunday at 1 p.m. at 101.5 FM. You can send your questions and comments via the WHCP YouTube channel and Facebook page.
Thanks again for tuning in, and here's Mayor Bradshaw.
Mayor Wooten, I want to thank you both for having me back this month. There's a lot of exciting things going on in the city of Cambridge right now. Last night, the City Planning Commission reviewed plans for a relocation of the Advanced Auto Parts that's currently located in Cambridge, and also for the Tractor Supply Company that's going to be opening in the Cambridge Marketplace by the Walmart. In addition to that, there were some other plans that were reviewed as well, and the packing house continues to move forward. Last Friday, we had a meeting between the County Council, the City Council, the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, and the Cambridge Waterfront Development Incorporated Group to discuss progress on the waterfront redevelopment located on the Salewinds property and the hospital property on the Choptank River. I say all of this and bring all of this up to point out that we're on the cusp of a great deal of progress and changes coming to the city of Cambridge, but there are going to be changes and forms of progress that are going to contribute to what we have here, and they're going to make a life in Cambridge a better life by having more access to services, to retail opportunities, and to other needs. And beyond that, they're also going to contribute to the city in ways that will allow us to then make investments into our community. So this is hugely important, and it's something that we're very happy to see. And the timing couldn't be better with the new council coming in with the priorities that we have, having the opportunity now to integrate these businesses into the community and have them contribute culturally, socially, financially to the city of Cambridge is something that is going to be of great opportunity to us. But we're still facing some concerns as well. We've got to figure out funding for Cambridge Police to ensure that officers remain on our force. We've had 2 officers leave recently. But nevertheless, those that are here are very dedicated to the community. And like the commissioners and like your city government as a whole, they are working the best that they can to provide the level of safety and security expected in this community. And we're very proud of them. To that point, on Monday evening at the council meeting, we're going to be reviewing and holding public hearing and then a vote on an ordinance that's going to provide a public safety tax credit to members of Cambridge Police and to members of Rescue Fire Company that reside in the city of Cambridge. We're doing this for two reasons. One, we want to show appreciation and maintain the relationship we have with those officers and firefighters that live in the city of Cambridge. And two, we also want to provide another mechanism that can be used to recruit officers and firefighters that can serve our city and that are invested in the outcomes that exist here in the city of Cambridge. So that public hearing will be Monday night. Additionally, we've been working towards some other matters. The City Technology Committee will be announced, the membership will be announced, and the community members will be voted upon on Monday night. And the same with the revamped Traffic and Safety Committee that's going to be focused upon trying to build a safer street network in the city of Cambridge that's going to be more equitable and is not totally car-centric, but is also going to be designed in a fashion that's going to be safe and reliable for pedestrians, bicycle riders, and those that use other forms of alternative transportation. So exciting things happening, just the first step. Excited to have Commissioners Malkus and Roche on here today to discuss some of these things and to answer some questions from the community as they come out. Thanks, guys.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mayor Bradshaw. And up next, we'll have Brian Roche.
I think the mayor said it all. We've hit the ground running. One of the things I just wanted to comment on is just as a council, when we ran, you just expect to be able to snap your fingers and all these things that the citizens made as priorities. You made your priorities, and we have them. We've hashed that out in a work session, which is super important because there's two things that happen to you. One is you show up at meetings and there's things on the agenda that have to be addressed. They're sort of like the immediate things that just come up. But then there's the longer term things, and I think the mayor did a good job of addressing them. And then there's things that are in many ways out of your control, that you attempt to address in the best way possible. And I think initially, we've prioritized public safety. Democracy thrives when people feel safe and comfortable, and the people that are serving that role, our police and fire department, we've done what we can to incentivize them to live within the city limits. We did that very quickly, and we did that for good reason. We want people to feel safe, and now we want people to actually, within that comfortable environment and happy police departments and fire companies, we want to actually fix some of the underlying problems that result from not having a safe city or having a city where homes catch on fire way too often. And a lot of that is our priority, which was a priority before us, which is the neighborhood revitalization plan. And I think that's one thing that I wanted to add to the mayor's comments is there are specific recommendations in that plan, that we intend to start implementing to move the ball forward when it comes to improved housing. And then that is coupled with safe streets. And I think we joked, or I read an article somewhere, I don't know where stuff comes from anymore, but building our city like a college campus. And that just don't think of that in terms of an elite institution, but think of that in a place that you can reach the things that you need. All your services are provided for. You sort of have a unified environment where everyone is moving in the same direction to better their lives. So that's all I have to say. It's kind of big picture, but I'm looking forward to continuing to align our goals and move forward, even though it takes a little longer and it's a slower process than we'd all like. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. And up next, we have Commissioner 5, Chad Malkus.
I like Commissioner 5. That sounds good.
Ward 5.
Commissioner Ward 5. Yeah, thank you, Marco. Thank you, Mayor Wooten, and it's great to be here. And if you let the mayor talk too long, he takes all of the topics away that you want to talk about. But no, I really really feel like we're off to a great start, and I've really enjoyed working not only with the mayor and Commissioner Roche, who I've known all my life, but getting to know Commissioner Harrington and Commission President Cephas and Commissioner Cephas, and just a great group to work with, and everybody is it's just very excited for the future of the city. And I've really appreciated watching the thoughtful approach of everyone when we're sort of faced with an issue. As Commissioner Roche was saying, unfortunately, right at the beginning, we're sort of at the whim of things that have preceded us and issues that were sort of teed up that sort of came across the agenda right off the bat. And I think what we're trying to do, doing our best to do, is to really be move more in the direction of being proactive instead of reactionary. And we want to make sure that while we're looking at the big picture, we're implementing policies and enacting procedures and ways in which we can do things that will really raise Cambridge up. And trying to stay focused on that big picture is, it's really important. I'm lucky enough in representing Ward 5. I've got a lot of exciting stuff that's happening in my ward. I always joke with Commissioner Roche that I have a hospital being built in my ward, and he always says, "Well, I have a lighthouse in mine." So it's good stuff either way. But we also have the Packing House project, which we touched on a little bit. But that, along with Cannery Park adjacent to that, is going to be really exciting to watch that all come into fruition in the next few years. And I think it's going to be a real asset to the city, something we can all point to and really appreciate and enjoy. And that's not just, certainly the work of this commission. That's the work of many city councils and community partners and stakeholders for many years to get to this point. And some of us on the council have been a part of that for a long time. It's nice now to be on the council and be able to sort of have a little more hand in moving the ball forward. And we also, of course, have the waterfront property. When the hospital moves, it's just a perfect opportunity to have this excellent waterfront that has been such an asset to the city and everybody's looked to for potential. Honestly, since I was in college, that's when the initial sail winds, if you look at the original poster with a hot air balloon flying over this gorgeous sail winds park. And I remember having that poster up in my dorm room at college at Clemson, go Tigers. And having that on my wall while I was probably called a dork, by my friends and my roommate, who looked at that and went, "Why are you having a picture of your town on here?" But it just represented the excitement and the potential for where we could really go to. And I think we're getting close to implementing things that are really going to realize that potential. And obviously, we want to implement that with an eye towards our downtown and integrating that into our downtown. Our Main Street district has always been a huge priority for me, even though that's not in my ward. Many of the things we're going to be doing in the coming year will be to invigorate and enhance our already exciting downtown. I mean, we've had 3 new restaurants open within the last month, and that's during a pandemic. I just think that's fantastic. And so, I think as a council, we want to be the town's biggest cheerleaders, and that's part of our job. And hopefully we can continue to do that. And we live in exciting times, and I think this is, I think the next 4 years with this council is going to be a really exciting time. So I appreciate you guys having us on here today. It's good to be able to talk.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate you guys. So any comments that you have off of what each other said? Whoever wants to go first.
Well, I just want to add to what Chad said about, he mentioned that downtown is so important to him, but he's not the Ward 3 commissioner. And I think what is great about this council and what is maybe different than what we've seen in the past is that though we, of course, represent or the commissioners represent the wards for which they were elected, they also understand the big picture that is a success in another ward is a success for their ward. Whatever good happens in Ward 4 or in Ward 2 or in Ward 3 contributes positively to Ward 5 and Ward 1. And whatever happens that is of positive note in Ward 1 contributes positively to Ward 2 and to Ward 5. I mean, there is such an interconnectedness in a town the size of Cambridge. I always say that, you can cross the city of Cambridge in 5 or 10 minutes by car. That's not a huge geographic area. And the point in saying that is to say that the impacts that occur in one area have real direct impacts just a short distance away as well. It's not like you're talking about Baltimore City and the distance from South Baltimore to Roland Park. I mean, it's not an hour away, even by car. So the impacts that exist here, and particularly in the core of the city, really contribute positively to everything that happens along the outside and throughout all the neighborhoods beyond. And I'm really gratified and happy that all the commissioners understand that and see that and are therefore very, very supportive of the needs that exist in the other communities, not just where they were elected, but also across the city.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, with what the mayor is saying, that's been the most gratifying thing for me thus far is just the sort of general concept. And you would think it would be sort of a natural concept, but unfortunately with previous councils, it does not seem to have always been that way, that the good things that happen in each ward lift up the entire town, and moving forward in a unified direction is great for everyone. It's great for jobs. It's great for economic development. It's great for making our town a draw. We have so many assets here in the city, and I look at sort of other towns, and I'm like, well, they don't have the water. They don't have, what makes this town successful and what makes that town successful. And we have so much untapped things that I think we are looking for really reviving and invigorating over the next few years that I think will just be an overall draw. And as Brian said, I love that idea of the idea of making a city much like a college campus, in that you have sort of a unified vision, a unified an area in a city where you feel safe and you can walk to most of the services that you need, and everything is sort of working synergistically with each other, and I that's a great concept, and hopefully there's a lot of plans and little and big things that we can do to implement a lot of that.
So the one thing we got to do is make sure that we don't start turning everything orange like Clemson University.
I'd get outvoted on that.
Yeah, the point's not to turn everything orange and
Right.
put tiger paws everywhere, but same concept.
And blue and
But
white
it's
are
good
a much better color match in my mind anyway. So
We could go blue and gold for the Vikings, and that's all right.
blue and gold's fine. I can live with that.
Yeah, I wanted,
Let's fly.
I wanted to just, one thing I was thinking when you guys were talking was something that I've read about is that towns are afraid, they go big, and when we're going big with a lot of these projects, and I think when we think of going big, we should think of going different. We don't have to do things like they've always been done in the past, but one of the other things we can't be afraid of is making mistakes. But the mistakes, let's just try to minimize them, to make them lots of little mistakes that we can recover from. So if we don't do something right, it's still worth trying to get it right. So give us some grace there when we implement some of these things, and know that without a doubt, I'm just echoing the mayor's and Ward 5's comments, is that the council has already, believe it or not, we've had some really tough decisions where we're not 100% eye to eye, but I think when it comes to decision time, we're making little compromises and willing to give things a try and invest in the community. So that's been what's most encouraging. So yeah, just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and I think to Brian's point, Commissioner Roche's point.
You can call me whatever you want. I don't care.
I think there's a lot of different skill sets on within the council, and from we all come from a variety of different backgrounds and different experiences, and I think that really complements each other well, and so I think that also enables us to listen to each other more effectively. And I think that's so important for any governing body, any city council, any board, any committee, all of that. You've got to be willing to listen to each other. You got to be willing to open your mind. Commissioner Roche has been one of my best friends all my life, but there's sometimes he has to educate me on something. Listen, there's a better way to think about this than sort of, I'm an old man, so I'd always change isn't always feel the best to me. But if you can look at something sort of positively and in a different light and say, this could potentially work in this manner, and if we were able to implement these certain things that go with it and focus on sort of the larger picture with that, then there's a lot of opportunities there to really make this city better. And something that, again, not every constituent is going to believe or agree with. But it's something, if we all sort of have faith in each other and sort of the bigger picture and what we're all sort of aiming for, which is a better Cambridge, I think by and large, most people will come along.
And to piggyback off of that, two things. First off, Chad really is the old man. He's the oldest commissioner at 49, which is, I think it's an unbelievable shift for this city.
This is Ovaltine, right?
The level of young engagement. Not to say that the engagement of past leaders was poor or should be discounted, but the point being that I think that previously we didn't see younger generations feeling that they were stakeholders in what was happening in the city, and this election really brought to the forefront that a lot of what's going on here is being driven by folks like Chad and Brian and myself that were born here, that have decided to make our lives here versus moving on elsewhere. We saw the opportunity that does exist here and saw it through, and that goes back all the way to the time when Brian and Chad were integral in helping getting a Main Street organization, moving here in this community. And it continues today. But I think it's hugely important. The other point that both Brian and Chad brought up is that, there is disagreement. Don't think that we are acting monolithically. There is discussion, there is compromise, there's all that. But what I wanted to impress early on, and what thankfully I didn't need to impress really because everyone else believed in it as well, was the need to leave disagreement with an issue at that issue, right? So when we get done disagreeing on a particular matter, that's it. And the disagreement stops there. And then now where the collaboration can occur, the friendship, the happiness, the laughing, all that, we're able to walk away from the one disagreement and say, okay, that's one area where we're not on the same page totally. We'll find an area and a way to answer, that's going to be agreeable to everybody. But at the same time, we're able to then say, all right, but that was it. And now it's time to move on. The level of collegiality and compromise and respect that exists with this group, I can't speak highly enough about it. And it's something that I expect and I know is going to continue throughout the 4 years. Even when we do have strong disagreements amongst council members, they'll stay at the issue and they're not going to continue into other issues and into the relationship between those members. And that's hugely gratifying, and it's something that I think is going to lead to the strength of this group, and is going to continue to be one of the strengths of this city as a result.
If I could make an observation on what you guys have already said, if two people agree on everything, one of them's not necessary. And it's nice that you guys can disagree among yourselves and discuss what's going on. And I'm sitting here looking at the WHCP emblem on the wall there, and it said it's a great place to be, talking about Cambridge. And years ago, I was friends with the mayor of Easton, and he said, we love to have that river. I said, well, Mayor, sorry to tell you this, but that's already spoken for. And that's a major asset that we have. And the more I see and the more I read and the more I hear of what's going on, I think we're going to have a tremendous 4 years. And I'm glad to be in Cambridge, and thank you for what you're doing already.
Thank you.
And Dave, I think in some ways you were the forebearer for us, right? You were, I think, prior to my being elected, you were the youngest mayor in Cambridge history, if I recall. And during your term, there was a lot of change that occurred. And it was during your administration that the Hyatt was brought to Cambridge, for example, which has been totally transformative. And the relationship that exists now between the Hyatt and the city of Cambridge is probably the best it's ever been, and it's going to continue to grow with the leadership that they have there. So, I mean, just a prime example of what it means to have people step forward who see the promise here in this community.
Yeah, it was a great achievement, but it's been a long time in the past. We need to have some more now. If we can get the city and the county and the state to cooperate, that's when things generate in a good way. And I'm a cheerleader from the sidelines for what everybody's trying to do.
Yeah. And, when we talk sort of about the future and looking at some of the changes that have happened as a result of COVID, what has really been fascinating to me is, people are realizing, particularly those that live in the major metropolitan areas and the cities, that when the city shuts down, when you can't go to the restaurants and you can't go even to the parks, then there's sort of nothing to do. Whereas if you're here on the shore, then there's still a variety of things that you can enjoy and do. And more people, now that they are untethered from having to go into an office, and there's people that are able to work remotely. I've been working remotely for it'll be coming up on a year in a couple weeks. I think we left March 15th of last year and have not been in the office since. And I'm fortunate that I have a job that I'm able to do that and be flexible, but it's really compelled people to look differently at where they want to live and work. And if you talk to a lot of realtors in the area, business is booming, and people are snatching up properties and looking for places to live that has the good quality of life that we do, sort of the major assets of this area. And I think if we can continue to grow and enhance that we will have a more vibrant city, and it's going to be an exciting time for the Eastern Shore. I'm not saying I want to, flood of everyone from Jersey and Philly to, come pouring in, but I think at the same time, with planned growth, I think we can be a successful city and sort of help to alleviate some of the problems that have faced us in the past, as far as our tax base, et cetera, et cetera.
I want to add to that. WHCP did a wonderful forum profiling Ed McMahon, not the one from the Tonight Show, but actually the Urban Land Institute, who's very insightful. And he says the one thing that communities can do to make them good places to live and make people have pride is to make sure you know where you are. A lot of the themes going through the nonprofits and the organizations like Eastern Shore Network for Change is just, and even the Packing House is approaching telling our story. And we tell our story in a number of ways. But as we grow, it's important that we don't forget that story. So that means things like design standards that aren't controlling per se, but when we build something, even on Route 50, we need to make sure that we're suggesting to whoever's doing that project, hey, have fun with this, but make sure we know that we're in Dorchester County, and make sure that we know that we're in Cambridge. And that doesn't, again, like I said, it doesn't have to be encumbering. It actually can be something where we're celebrating our built environment, and we're not just building massive parking lots like everywhere else. I think one of the worst examples of development around here is Route 13 in Salisbury. It's dangerous, soulless. It's a
Yeah.
sprawling mess. And I think they are doing a good job in rethinking that policy. I often think about if a lot of the energy and investment went towards the historic core of Salisbury, not in the sense that it would have just plowed over and destroyed everything, but if they had embraced it and made investment attractive there, to think with the university, go back to the college theme, and the historic neighborhoods and the built environment, that they're just trying to rebuild. But there are some things that we need to look at really hard from our traditional methods of zoning and controls, and make sure that we're embracing investment, but that we're continuing to cultivate our unique story, both from the telling the story specifically to actually the environment that we're creating around that, because that's ultimately going to be the most successful community for those of us that live here, from here, or come here. And I know that, and I firmly believe that. And anything I do, whether it's fixing the flooding problems in Ward 1 or helping Ward 5 control the growth on their, or enhance the growth, or make the built environment on the commercial corridor fit with Cambridge, that's going to be my driving theme.
Yeah. And, that sense of place that Brian was talking about, I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina for a little while, and they were expanding sort of the interstate around their version of their beltway. And with each exit, basically the same thing would happen. So you'd have a new exit, and they would have sort of your Applebee's and your fast food and one shopping plaza. And then there would be an apartment complex, and then there would be townhomes, and then there would be single family homes. And you'd go there, and each single exit looked like, like, well, what town am I in? I don't know. I think this one's called Matthews. I think this one's called Mint Hill, that sort of thing. And these used to be actual towns, but this sort of type of just homogenized growth had taken over it. And, it's precisely the opposite of what we want here. And we want to have growth, but at the same time, never forget our sense of place. We have so much assets in our shared history and everything that we have around the waterfront. And I'm from a family of farmers that, moved here and right at the turn of the 20th century. So right around 1900. And, and farming and watermen are just such a core to this community. But we have, a rich history dating back to the colonial times, and all of that can be embraced by different people and businesses within the community. So if we never forget sort of our sense of place, then I think we can be a really successful city.
Building off that too, what Chad talks about, we see so many communities fall into, the same 6 chain restaurants, the same 3 national retailers, the same large parking lot facing a limited access road, all these things. And, we want to have growth. We want to invite investment, including that investment that may come from retailers that are regional or nationally based, but we want to do it in a fashion that contributes rather than detracts from our local economy, from our local storefronts, and from the character that exists here. I'm going to be a little bit corny, but I'm going to say, WHCP calls Cambridge a great place to be. And what we want to do is we want to ensure that we're not going to be just another place to be. And too many towns fall into the trap of becoming just another stop on the highway. And that's not what Cambridge is, and that's not what our goal is. And building off of that, we do have so many unique assets. And so knowing that sense of place is hugely important. Brian talked about the city of Salisbury and Route 13. And 13 is dangerous. It's unattractive. It's a hodgepodge. I mean, it's everything that you wouldn't want architecturally or stylistically or from a safety perspective. And, I think there was a time where leadership in Cambridge in the 60s and 70s would have liked to have seen that here, because it was viewed as growth. It wasn't viewed as bad growth. It was just viewed as growth. And, Salisbury is dealing with trying to overcome some of that and revive their downtown, and they're having success as well. But again, it's young, and it's kind of forward-thinking leadership that's taken this perspective that, hey, some of the things we did 30 and 40 years ago haven't had the positive outcomes we've hoped.
Salisbury declares war on the city of Cambridge.
What's that?
I said Salisbury declares war on the city of Cambridge. Details at 11.
No, but
Yeah.
Mayor Jake Day and City Administrator Julia Glanz down in Salisbury, and as well as the council with President Jack Heath and Vice President Mir Boda, I mean, they've really taken and understood that they have that, and that they can make that 13 corridor an asset economically, but that it does provide a division within the city. It's a hard path to cross, and it's led to some negative outcomes for their downtown over the course of the last 35 years. And then now they're trying to undo some of the negatives while also maintaining the positives that exist there. And that's, again, it's about smart growth. I've got a book that was given out at the Dorchester 300th anniversary, and it's a collection of radio essays that were read on local radio back then, and then so there were 99 histories, and then one that looked forward to the future of Cambridge and Dorchester County. And what the future looked like to them in 1969 is everything we wouldn't want to see today. They talked about tearing down the 400 block of Ray Street and replacing it with what they consider at the time luxury garden style apartments. Had that occurred, you lose your downtown core. They talked about moving the retail out to the edges, which to some extent occurred. And it's not necessarily a negative in all ways, but the idea that the core of your city wasn't also going to be the center of activity was the viewpoint in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and it was based upon these ideas of a new model of what urban living was. And we still see some of the outcomes of that. Even the Academy Street corridor that sees so much street-facing parking as a result of that. That was a mixed-use residential commercial corridor up into the 1960s, and most of it was demolished and rebuilt in the fashion it is now. And any way that we can get more street-facing retail, more street-facing residential back onto that corridor and see some investment right in the core in the heart of the city, I mean, that's going to be a positive if we're able to do that as a council. And it's also going to better connect, once again, our downtown core back to the waterfront, because right now that block and a half of Academy Street really does serve as kind of a barrier that prevents that level of connectivity. So that's something that we've all identified, and we said, hey, this was the en vogue planning style of 1965, and thank goodness it didn't extend beyond that. And now we've got to understand that, and we've got to bring that corridor back into a better form of use that's going to be contributory to the neighborhood surrounding it.
Yeah, amen. The RUDAT actually called our views of the water welcome mats, and one of the unique things that the city did when it was built was terminated streets with public access to the waterfront, and that Academy Street corridor destroyed that. And RUDAT said, if we do nothing else, if you're walking north or south, so if you're either turning left or right, you should see the water. And to add to that, we have that wonderful mural of Harriet Tubman that Alpha Genesis has applied for enhancements in that area. And one of the cool things about that is, one, just the amount of energy that is in the 400 block of Ray Street now that would not have been there if it had been mowed over. That I think we should just double down on the amount of energy and investment that's going there, and also keep in mind that anywhere along that path and anywhere in the city, we need to start connecting our neighborhoods, and in most cases reconnecting them to the water, because it gives you a sense of place. It lets you know where you are, and it's just so important. So I'm looking forward to, I just wanted to bring that project up because part of that, be it the Black Lives Matter painting on the street, or the mural, or the redone parking lot, that sort of corridor there, the way it can cross Academy Street and terminate right at the water, can be a wonderful pedestrian plaza and a center of energy that will revitalize that part of Cambridge, particularly Pine Street, which is our big focus for the neighborhood revitalization. We need to reconnect our historic communities to the water, and I'm just looking forward to that, because that is what a win-win-win that is. And there's a lot of energy around that.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. We have a comment from Kathleen Clow. She says, great conversation. And we have another question asking for an update on the City Hall firehouse. Who wants to go first?
I'll go ahead and
We'll tee
start
that up
with
to the mayor.
So, one of the things that I talked about in my campaign, and Brian did as well, and Chad, I think, talked about as well, was the need to get the city into what is our historic center. And for a few reasons. One, because it is part of the gateway to our city core. I mean, if you are entering our downtown, there's a better than good chance that you are driving up to that building and seeing it empty. And that level of deterioration as well, we've got to bring that to a stop, or the building's going to be lost. So it's something that we do want to focus upon, but we want to do it in a fashion that does not prevent us from in any way, funding the other needs that we have. So something that I've been working on, and I think that's going to be introduced, and I've discussed this with some of the commissioners, is going to be having a committee put together to start looking at what it means to get the building back online, what departments can get back in the building, and how we can find alternative funding mechanisms to make it work, so that we're not pulling from taxpayer funds directly in doing so, whether that be grant funding from the Maryland Historic Trust or the Maryland Heritage Area Authority, whether that be some nonprofit grant funding opportunities that exist through groups like the Midshore Community Foundation, whether that be General Assembly bond funding that is held by the state of Maryland rather than by the city of Cambridge, so that the funds are provided for capital improvements. But all of these things can be utilized in a fashion that doesn't detract from the other needs that we have, and the funding mechanisms and requirements are so narrow that there are limited other ways in which we could use those kinds of funds for the city of Cambridge, specifically as the municipality. So that's going to be important. The committee is going to lean heavily on citizens in this community that have a background in grant funding, grant writing, and in historic preservation. We've got some great people in this community that we can bring online that have been absolutely outstanding with those topics over the course of the last 15, 20 years. Those people have been involved in bringing investment back to our downtown and getting some of the buildings that have suffered fires or that have been derelict for many years. Those individuals can help now get the city on that same track. So that's something we're going to be doing. We're going to have some contributions from stakeholders as well, downtown Cambridge, the rescue fire company for the train garden aspect, all these things. But in the end, we want to find a way to save that building, get back in that building, get as many city departments under one roof as we can, while at the same time not taking away from the financial needs that exist elsewhere in the city, because ultimately everything we do has got to be done in a fashion that's going to not detract from, but instead contribute to solutions for the more pressing issues that exist.
Yeah, and to the mayor's point, it truly is one of the most iconic buildings in the city of Cambridge, and we would never forgive ourselves if we just let that deteriorate into nothing. And it makes sense to have the city hall in the city hall instead of a police station that looks like a bunker left over from World War II or that sort of thing, or some of the bad architecture of the 60s and 70s. I'm not sure exactly when that building was built. But it would also be great to unload that. And as we were talking about that Academy Street corridor, putting some things back online that would potentially be able to sell that and get rid of that building and consolidate back into our city hall. But I never want to look at sort of funding for things in the city. If we do this, then that takes away from that. That's not how government works, and that's not how funding for these things work. As the mayor was saying, there's a lot of different opportunities, a lot of different grant funded things out there, capabilities where we can do it. But, we certainly do not want to put a huge burden upon the city. So I think part of that committee that the mayor is suggesting will be looking at how can we do this incrementally? How can we do this in phases so it's not sort of this massive hit all at once? But it is truly important, and I will, support, to my last breath that we should be back in there as far as City Hall. Nobody's trying to make it into a palace or that sort of thing. We just want to have offices back in there and make it. And actually, some of the plans that had been done were more extensive than we probably need to be. This issue is not new. It's something that has been looked at over the years, and we are just dusting it off and seeing how we can tweak it and adjust it for the times. And it's truly important, and it's as important as many of the other projects going on in the city. However, we want to do it in such a way that again, we're not putting an undue burden on the city.
Yeah, and I don't know if Brian wants to add anything to that as well, but ultimately, the big thing here is I think it's threefold. First is getting the building stabilized so there's not any additional deterioration or damages that occur. Then step two would be bringing up to the level of expected need for occupancy, and then coming back and finalizing any kind of additional things that we would do to the building. But ultimately, step one's got to be stabilizing it, because right now architectural details are simply falling off of it, and we've seen inside there's significant damages due to water ingress and things of that nature. So
we also need to get rid of the pigeons too. Step 1A,
and there's something like 1,000 pigeons living in the hose tower and back. So
if I'm given a 1-day permit in the city, I will take my 12 gauge and we'll see how it goes. It's just I'm gonna need some permitting from the city for that. So I'll take it on myself.
If I could interject a question here, a question has been raised about the bike trail. Could Commissioner Roche, would you be willing to speak on that?
Are they? I mean, there's all kinds of plans. So I guess maybe they're talking about the Rails to Trail project for Cannery Park, the new Cannery Park. Yep. So what I understand is that as soon as next month, they're looking to the money's secured. That should be starting soon. It's been delayed in a number of ways, but it's on the books. And that pathway from Cedar Street to Washington Street, Dorchester County's first Rails to Trails, something that other cities have been doing for 30 years now, hopefully will be started this spring. And I did want to point out, there's a really neat concept that I put on my Facebook page, and I've actually visited the Indianapolis Cultural Trail. And one of the things that they realized to tie this all together is you don't have to make a trail that you escape the city from. You can actually look at making a trail that connects all of the things that you celebrate about your city. And that's what Indianapolis did. And it's been a wonderful addition to neighborhoods and quality of life. The RUDAT was another precursor to the comprehensive plan, integrated this section of rail trail into a network of trails and connectivity options safely, schools, health department, shopping, recreation, the waterfront, where we actually have an opportunity to interconnect safely everything that's important to us. Even the shopping center where the health department is going, with this particular trail being the first piece. So my hope is that this is a template where we sort of, again, learn the process, learn what it took to get this online, and then use those lessons. Like I said, small mistakes allow you to learn. And this isn't a mistake, but just little incremental improvements where next we can look at, okay, well, we have this packing house building coming online. We have Salewinds coming online. How can we now connect that small section of trail to Salewinds? And that's actually a conversation that I was involved in just this morning, where Sidewalks are kind of a outdated concept. What you want is pathways, safe pathways, places that aren't right adjacent to the road. It's not safe. You can pretty much pass a lot of the improvements through the giggle test. Would you put your 8-year-old child or your 80-year-old grandmother out on the street, and could they safely navigate it without you around? And by safely, I also mean walking alongside the road. I mean, the fact that we built a sidewalk to Walmart is wonderful. But think about sending your 8-year-old child or your 80-year-old grandparent along a sidewalk where travel is flying at upwards of 65, 70, however fast you want to drive, directly adjacent to that pedestrian. It makes absolutely no sense to me. And it really saddens me that we put that level of effort into infrastructure that we have to maintain. And I think Mayor Wooten can comment on how expensive sidewalks are for cities to maintain. So I think that's something where I want to go boldly, and I would like for us to rethink our pedestrian infrastructure and say, what really are we accomplishing here? And is there a better way to look at connectivity to the things that are important to us? Most streets designed safely don't need sidewalks. Some of the best streets, traffic drives slowly on there, and that street, it's better to look at as a public right of way. It's not just for cars, it's for bikes, it's for skateboards, pedestrians, and even a place to play. Throw up a basketball net. You know what? Walk to the side when the car comes down there. I mean, this is the way we can rethink things that are not only safer, but more environmentally friendly, less blacktop and pavement and pervious surface everywhere, but also more fiscally responsible, where we're not finding ourselves in a situation where we have overbuilt our infrastructure and we can't maintain it anymore, which is critically important to the tax base of the city. So I hope that answers your question. I'm looking forward to it as much as you are. And certainly find me on Facebook or email me at ward1@choosecambridge.com if you have any follow-up questions regarding that.
See, and you learn something new every day. I didn't realize that Indianapolis had any culture, let alone a cultural trail. So that's just, I learned
Hey now, that's been the prior home of the Big Ten championships. Okay, so,
another reason why I don't like it. Yeah.
But no, what Brian's saying is right. I think we need to see some further development of the sidewalk networks that we have in some of the residential communities here in the city, particularly those that haven't seen investment in the past. But at the same time, the way that we connect place to place doesn't have to be concrete on the side of the road. As he brought up, having a sidewalk that runs parallel to Route 50 is though it's used is dangerous. It's expensive to maintain. It's fraught with issues, right? But finding ways to connect that shopping district with the communities that need to get there, this Rails to Trails, if it expands out in that fashion, that's one way to do it. Another thing that needs to be discussed is finding ways to provide better connectivity within the town, between areas of need and the communities themselves. So, what I mean by that is, some of the retail that's available within the community, connecting that in a better fashion to the actual residential neighborhoods. Something I've heard about recently too is concern about speeds on Race Street Extended, for example, and that along with portions of Washington Street are essentially state highways that run right through the middle of a residential neighborhood. And though they may be signed for 30 miles an hour or 35 miles an hour, the way they're designed, the width, the level of comfort that you have as a driver commuting on these roads leads to a willingness to be doing 40, 45, or 50 in these areas. And it's very dangerous for the pedestrians. It's very dangerous for the families that live parallel to these roads. So calming the traffic in these areas, finding alternative ways to do so. It's hugely important. That's why one of the things that we've passed is the restructuring of the Traffic and Safety Committee, so it can better focus on these kinds of issues and finding solutions to these issues from a policy perspective versus being reactive and doing things like throwing up stop signs. wherever there may be a complaint. This is the big thing. It's not about reacting to the issue. It's about finding solutions so that the issue can be actually mitigated. And that's a big focus and push of this council, is finding real solutions, not just putting Band-Aids on problems.
Well, I'd like to say something on what the mayor just commented on. All those years ago, back in 1992, it cost approximately $12,000 a year to educate a student in Dorchester County schools. We did that for 12 years in a row. They graduate on the stage of the local high school. They walk across the stage, and we have $150,000 invested in every one of those young people. They look around at the community that raised them, the community that nurtured them, the community that helped to make them what they were, and they saw no future. Our investment, our energy, our effort, and our time left to go somewhere else because they had no future. I really believe with the group that we have now, we're going to be able to maintain our investment and provide them a future right here in Cambridge. And I sure hope that'll happen. And I can tell you this, it's been a very informative time, and I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this discussion. And I thank Marco for including me in this. Keep up the good work, and what you guys are doing is very much appreciated by the people at large. Thank you.
We want to thank you as well, Dave, for joining us. I think having you moderate this with Marco, the experience that you have, it's going to be greatly contributory as we face the issues moving forward, and as we discuss the solutions that we come across. And as I continue to say, I'm just very gratified that the commissioners as a body have all said that this is something that they're interested in taking part in, because ultimately, I think one of the failings of past City of Cambridge administrations has been a lack of communication with the community, and having this avenue, having social media, having better relationships with the print media, having better connection with the television media out of Salisbury. All this is going to be important in ensuring that people understand and are bought into what we're doing, but also when they do disagree, they understand the motivations, and at the very least, though they may disagree, they can come to appreciate that what's being done is being done earnestly and with an eye toward what's best for the city.
Amen.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all. And we have another question in from some towns have a strict noise ordinance, like Ocean City. Lately, some have complained about loud public address.
Oh, they're probably talking about the guy that was in front of Food Lion.
Oh, right.
Speakers.
Okay. Yeah, playing really loud music.
Or,
is that what he was doing?
or someone just blasting their voice.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to touch it, but because it mixes religion and and the noise ordinance. It is something that, I mean, I've heard some complaints, and it is something we're trying to sort of look at and find the best way to sort of not inhibit free speech, but you don't just get to also sit at a corner for 5 hours and 6 hours and blast your loudspeaker at everyone that passes by either. So, I think it's definitely worth exploring and seeing how that can be done and adjusted in sort of a more productive and meaningful fashion. And I do understand it as an issue. So, it is something we've talked about, and we're trying to figure out how best to address it within the framework of some of the existing laws that we have. So I think some of it is sort of enforcing it properly and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well,
Commissioner Malkus, can I say one more thing on that?
Sure.
Free speech is very important. It's enshrined in the Constitution, but there's a big difference between free speech and noise.
Correct.
Well, and again, I think it's self-evident, to use a word of the Constitution, that you have the right to do anything you want as long as it doesn't impinge upon me living a fruitful and productive life the way I want to. And I know that I feel blessed to live where I live, and next to a park. But one of the things that drives me crazy is when I'm about to do my reading before I go to bed, someone to pull up at Long Wharf, thumping and bumping. And I love the music. I mean, I think it were at 3 PM, I would be excited. But, 11 o'clock at night, the walls vibrating is something that I'm like, what do you do to encourage people to just live their best life, but be respectful for the fact that if I don't want to hear that, I shouldn't have to hear it. And whether it's whatever the message is, whether it's somebody in a loudspeaker or somebody with a loud muffler on their car, a lot of this stuff results back to vehicles, by the way. I'll just point that out. And but yeah, it's evident to me that if it's making someone uncomfortable, I don't care what the message is, be it music or whatever, it's just not fair to the receiving end of that. So even if you're a preacher, you preach to be heard and to bring people towards you and to whatever God they worship. You don't push it in their face, and that's not the way any deity that I've ever studied operated. So I don't think we have to worry about getting stricken to HE double hockey sticks for calling that this maybe is inappropriate. And there's a balance there.
And I'll finish on the topic and say that it's an issue that's been under discussion. I've been in conversation with Cambridge Police about it, and it's something that we want to address. And I look forward to the day where, as a city, this is the biggest issue we face, and because that's going to be a great time for Cambridge. It's going to be
everything else.
The biggest issue is some loud music. I mean, that's going to be spectacular. So
yeah.
Thank you all so much. And that's going to be an end for this segment. But we'll be back again next month, the first Wednesday. This has been Town Hall on WHCP 101.5. Thank you again for tuning in.
Thanks, Marco.
Thank you, Marco.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.